bit rusty, but it's kind of like this. All right, and it just kind of goes. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's TikTok. Really appreciate you tuning in. Today I want to show you how I made this dope flute type track using Beatmaker 3 and an actual flute. I mean, how else are you going to make a flute type track without a flute? Well, you can use samples, I guess, but no better way than to actually use a flute. So before we jump off into this video, make sure if you appreciate content like this that you hit the like button below. Also, if you want to be alerted to more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and turn on bell notifications. Now let's jump off into this beat overview. All right, so the first thing that I did, I came up with a flute melody on my flute here, and I'm a little bit rusty, but it's kind of like this. All right, and it just kind of goes on from there. And so I played that into Beatmaker 3, and this is kind of what I came up with. It's a little airy, all right? So I kind of did that. And then what I did was just kind of take that melody, and then I doubled it an octave up and came up with this. So this is the two together. This is the octave, all right? So super cool, super cool. So I wanted to just kind of keep layering, just kind of thicken it up. And so I decided to add a little harmony part. So here's the harmony part. I'm gonna just play it by itself. Like I said, I'm a little rusty. So here's all three parts together. Yeah, so super dope, super dope. Just basically layering the sounds together to make it thick and make it sound like something. So the next thing I wanted to do was I wanted to kind of make it sound vintage. So I wanted to add some effects to it, kind of make it sound a little more interesting. Of course, I wanted to add it more reverb to it to kind of give it a space. So this is what I did. If you look here in Beatmaker 3, all right, so I have flute part 1 here, flute part 2 here, and then flute part 3 is actually on audio 4. All right, and let me just solo these guys. All right, so if we play it, you don't hear anything. All right, so you don't hear anything because I have these routed in a special way. So I want to be able to affect all of those parts together. And so I routed them to an aux in Beatmaker 3. So aux 1 has all three flute parts routed to it. So send 1 on flute part 1, send 1 on flute part 2, and then send 1 for the third flute part. And all of those are going to aux 1. And so I've soloed that, and so now we should hear it. All right, so that's all three parts together. And I have control over all of them. All right. Now you notice that each one of the volumes of these flute parts is down. And the reason for that is because I didn't want them in the main mix. I only wanted them going to aux 1. So this is bussing. So I wanted to bus them all to aux 1 and be able to put effects and treat them all together as one thing. And the way that I did that in Beatmaker 3 is that you have to make sure that for each one of these tracks, you change the pre-fader. So if you look down at the bottom, if you tap here, pre-post fader, that changes the type of send it's going to be. So I want them to be pre-fader sends instead of post-fade, which is the default in Beatmaker 3. So if you look at this pure synth, it's post-fader. All the others are all post-fader. So you change it to pre-fader, and then you can turn down the sound in the main mix and only have your bust aux over here. So I hope that makes sense for you guys. But that's basically how I isolated all three of those flute parts to one track here so that I can put effects on it. So let's look at the effects that we added here. So here's aux 1. and then we go to our audio effects. So the first effect that I added in the chain is going to be my FAC Phazer. This is a new plugin that just came out recently. All right, and I mean it's really dope. It's got presets. I don't even think I really did much. I just wanted it to kind of give it some life to the 3 flute parts. So let's hear that. So we turn it on. So that's off. And that's on. Alright, so giving it some life, giving it some movement, as you can hear in the stereo field there. Alright, the next thing I wanted to do is add some reverb. Originally I used the Toneboosters Reverb, but I felt like it was too tame. I needed something a little more wild. So I went back to the FAC Alteza reverb, which is right here. Alright. And this reverb is nice. It's really dope, and it does some different things with reverbs that that's not just generic. Not to say that Toneboosters doesn't have interesting reverbs. I kind of went through all the presets, and there's some wild stuff in there, but none of them really kind of fit what I was looking for to do. So I went to the Alteza, and this is it, and let's hear it. So this is the flute with the phaser going into the Alteza reverb. Without the reverb. Alright, still going. Alright, so gave me some space there, some ambiance. This also has some little modulation things going on in there in the reverb, which just kind of adds to the whole vibe. Alright, so the next thing that I wanted to do was kind of give it more of a vintage vibe. So I wanted a more vintage sound, like vinyl, like something sampled from the 70s or something. So I went to the Time Machine effects from Pockets. Now I'll tell you this plugin is kind of a hog, and based on experience from other plugins on the desktop that kind of do this sort of thing, they're all kind of CPU hogs. So be careful when you use this plugin. You can't really use it a lot. So like I said, another reason for using this on a bus or an aux, an isolated aux, that way you process more than one track with the same plugin in one instance of it, so it's not hogging all your CPU. So anyway, here we have the Time Machine. So it's kind of a vinyl emulation tube saturation type of plugin, and gives you different effects. So you can have the effect of vinyl from the 1900s. If you turn this dial all the way down, that's going to give you a really kind of crappy sound if you want. But I wanted a 70s type of vibe, so I went to the year 1971. That's going to give me kind of the acoustic characteristics of audio from that time period. And then I used 49 RPM. It's kind of arbitrary, to be honest. That's just kind of where I landed, what sounded good to me. And then they have disc and needle damage, warp. That kind of gives you a little wow and some warpiness in the pitch. So I kind of left it at 0.23. I didn't want anything too wild because I still wanted to sound like it was in key. And then your wear. The wear kind of attenuates some of the high end. So for older records, they're not going to be as bright as a brand new record. So I wanted to kind of taper off some of the high end there. So I tuned that to about 0.65. And then dust, scratches, and hiss. I don't really care about that so much. I did add a little hiss, but I tell you, if you put too much of that hiss in there, you'll be wondering if you got, something wrong with your audio equipment like I did. But just dial that back a little bit, and that should be enough. And then you have your tube amp emulation. So I kicked up the drive a little bit and added a little saturation, just to kind of give it that vibe. So this is what it sounds like with the Time Machine effects. All right, so it kind of degrades the audio, just kind of give it more of a vintage vibe there. So the next thing I wanted to do was to EQ it just a little more, just kind of bring it into the sonics in the realm of what I was hearing in my head for this sample. So with some EQ from Toneboosters, this is what it sounds like. All right, this is kind of bringing up some of the high mids there. It's kind of taking out some of the low mids as well and the lows, just to kind of give it more of a vinyl type of vibe. So that's the whole flute part there, giving all the effects and whatnot. So now what's left to do? Let's add a beat. So what I did was create a kit from a bunch of Native Instruments, battery sounds, a bunch of 808s, some snare sounds, room sounds, claps, hi-hats, and whatnot. So I have some 808s. All right. And then some snare sounds, claps, and then some hi-hats. And all of these I tweaked, like the kicks, just kind of added some saturation so I can have some punch. I have some upper harmonics in there so that I can cut through the mix. And I have 3 different types, so a short one, kind of a middle decay, and then one with a longer decay. All right. And then I have this kind of rim snare hit that I created by stacking and layering different sounds there. And then I have various claps, and then of course 3 different hi-hats. Yes, 3 different hi-hats. All right, so here's the drum loop with the flutes. Here we go. Alright, so that's the drum beat. After that, I kind of wanted to accentuate the low end, so I ended up adding a bank with bass 808. Alright, and this is what that sounds like with bass 808. And with the bass 808, it's not following the entire kick drum pattern of the first bank. It's only accentuating certain notes. All right, after that, I mean, essentially I just wanted to pepper in some other instruments. So I got this sound from Pure Synth Platinum. So it's kind of a choir sound in there. Let me show you which one it is. So I used the Majestic and Angelic. I mean, Pure Synth Platinum is kind of like my go-to synth on iOS platform. It's I kind of liken it to maybe Omnisphere because it has so many different sounds and whatnot. I mean, different wave tones and wave tables and whatnot and ROMs. And then you can modulate so much with it. It's just so powerful. And then you can stack and layer different ROMs and sounds together. It's super power, super dope. I also did another Pure Synth Platinum. Let's listen to this. So some horns. And then even another Pure Synth Platinum. So let's hear this. Okay, so a kalimba type of sound just to kind of pepper in there. So let's hear what all of this sounds like together. All right, that's essentially the beat. I mean, there's one other sound in here, and it's basically a vocal sample that I had from my secret stash, and I sampled that in and came up with this little part. So let's hear that. Alright, so that's essentially the beat. Nothing left after that but to do the arrangement, add in my beat tag, and that's about it. That's all I wanted to show you guys today. So again, if you like content like this, please consider hitting the like button on this video. Also hit the subscribe button and turn on post bell notifications so you know when I upload new videos. And that's essentially it. So I'm going to get back to this beat and let's just keep it booming.